Hey there, my name's Rachel Carter. I'm 29, and I honestly never imagined that coming home one day early would flip my entire world upside down. So picture this. I just wrapped up 3 grueling days at a medical workshop in Chicago. I was dead tired, dreaming about collapsing into my own bed. But instead of peace and quiet, I turn onto my street, and there are cars everywhere. I mean, everywhere. Lining the curbs, bumper to bumper, like someone was throwing a massive block party. Spoiler alert, it wasn't just someone. It was my house, my home, and it was filled with people. Now, not complete strangers, but nearly 100 family members I barely recognized. Folks I hadn't seen since I had braces, all packed inside my house, laughing, eating, drinking, celebrating beneath this big glittery banner that read, "Family means forever." Yeah, the irony didn't escape me. Before I jump ahead, where are you watching from today? And hey, if you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, smash that like button and subscribe. Because what I'm about to tell you, it's proof that blood doesn't always mean loyalty. Let's rewind a little. Because for you to truly understand the shock, you need to know why walking into a house full of relatives felt like a slap to the face. For the past 7 years, I've poured everything I have into medical research. Specifically, I've been working on targeted cancer therapies, treatments that could completely change the game for aggressive forms of lymphoma. My team at the Boston Medical Research Institute, we've been pushing hard, trying to break new ground. This recent workshop in Chicago was a big deal. I was there presenting our early findings to some of the top oncologists in the country. But my family, they've never really gotten it. To them, all the schooling, all the research, it was just fluff. My mom, Diana, once said, "Why waste time in labs when you could start a real career?" And she meant it. In her mind, my brother Kevin, who sells insurance, was the one with the real job. And look, nothing against insurance, but growing up, it was obvious who the favorite was. When I brought home straight A's, my report card would get a quick nod and maybe make it onto the fridge. Kevin brought home B's and C's. My parents threw a whole dinner celebration. "He works so hard," they'd say. Meanwhile, my hard work was just expected. That pattern stuck around like wallpaper, always there. Kevin's baseball games were like national holidays for our family. My debate championships? Only attended if there wasn't something better going on. The only one who ever really made an effort to support me was my dad, James. Before he passed away from heart failure 5 years ago, he used to sneak me little notes, just quick messages to tell me he was proud. Never in front of Mom or Kevin, but still, they meant everything. After he died, the house became a financial burden on Mom. That's when Kevin had an idea. He suggested we buy the place together. Split it. He and his wife Stephanie would live on the main floor, I'd take the newly renovated upstairs apartment, and Mom would move into the in-law suite we built in the converted garage. On paper, it was perfect. And deep down, I hoped it might finally bring us closer. I used my fellowship money for the down payment. Kevin's share mostly came from Stephanie's parents. We became co-owners, but we documented everything. I'm talking contracts, boundaries, clear rules about shared areas and who was responsible for what. My attorney Barbara had insisted on it, and at the time I thought she was being overly cautious. Turns out she was right. For the first few years, the setup kind of worked. I traveled a lot for conferences and research trips. Kevin and Stephanie became social butterflies in the neighborhood, throwing dinners and holiday parties. I was technically invited, but the events always mysteriously landed on nights I had lab work or conference calls. And Mom, well, she made herself at home, which meant popping into my apartment whenever she wanted, moving things around to make them neater, and ignoring every request I made for a little notice. "I'm your mother, Rachel," she'd say. "I shouldn't need an appointment to see my daughter." So I kept trying. Sunday dinners when I could. Holiday gatherings where Kevin's stories got all the laughs while my medical breakthroughs barely got a blink. Just last Christmas, my research made it into a respected medical journal. Crickets. Meanwhile, Kevin wins a regional sales award and they throw him a full-blown celebration. Still, I tried. So when I found out about the Chicago workshop 3 months ago, I messaged Kevin right away with my travel dates, asking him to keep an eye on my place. His response? "No problem. Have a good trip. House will be quiet that weekend." That text would haunt me later, because when I walked up to my house that Friday evening, coming back a day early, I wasn't ready for what I saw. The workshop had gone amazingly well. My presentation had sparked serious buzz. Senior researchers wanted to collaborate, and Dr. Winters, one of the most respected oncologists out there, invited me to dinner to talk shop. But I was tired. I told him no, caught an earlier flight, and headed home to rest. And because I'm a softie, I brought back souvenirs, a snow globe of the Chicago skyline for Mom, craft beer from a local brewery for Kevin, fancy truffles for Stephanie. I thought, maybe, just maybe, we could finally celebrate my success together. Spoiler alert, they had other plans. My Uber dropped me a block from my house because of all the cars. At first, I figured maybe one of the neighbors was throwing a party, but as I got closer, I started recognizing the vehicles. Uncle Robert's classic Mustang, Patricia's minivan with the Dance Mom sticker, Cousin Michael's motorcycle. My pace slowed. Something felt wrong. The lights were on in every window. Music and laughter spilled onto the sidewalk. Through the front window, I saw balloons. And then the banner, "Family means forever." I stood there with my suitcase, my heart pounding. When I stepped inside, the sound hit me like a wave. Voices, music, kids screaming. The entryway was full of shoes and coats that didn't belong to me. The first person to see me was my cousin Tiffany, who I hadn't seen in maybe 3 years. She froze mid-sentence, wine glass halfway to her lips. "Rachel? Oh my God, you're here." And just like that, heads started turning. Conversations died mid-word. Everyone was staring. I stood there in shock, still gripping the handle of my suitcase, scanning the scene. Every room was packed with people, relatives I barely remembered, aunts and uncles I hadn't spoken to in years, cousins I wouldn't have recognized without a name tag. Janet, my mom's cousin, was dishing out food from my kitchen. Strange kids were sprawled out in my living room playing video games on my TV. Someone had pushed aside my research books and replaced them with trays of snacks and photo albums. And there, right in the middle of the dining room, was my mom, laughing with a group of older relatives. Until our eyes met. She froze. Kevin walked out of the kitchen with a tray of drinks. His eyes widened when he saw me, and he nearly dropped the glasses. Stephanie appeared beside him, whispered something in his ear, and he flushed red. My entire house had been transformed. Photos covered the walls, but oddly, not many of me. Mostly Kevin, or my parents, or group photos where I'd mysteriously been cropped out. A slideshow played on someone's laptop. Images of family vacations I'd never been invited to. And in the center of the living room, a giant foam board with a Carter family tree, branches highlighted in gold. My mother finally approached me, arms outstretched in a stiff hug. "What are you doing home today?" she asked, way too casual. "We thought you were coming back tomorrow." "The workshop ended early," I said evenly. "I caught an earlier flight." Kevin stepped in with that fake smile of his. "Great to see you, sis. Surprise. We, decided to host a little family gathering." "A little," I gestured around us. "There are at least 100 people here." 99, actually, Stephanie chimed in with a proud smile. "This is the Carter-Wilson family reunion. We've been planning it for months. Even Great-Aunt Edith flew in from Florida." And that's when it hit me. Months of planning. And somehow, no one told me. The word months echoed in my mind like a siren. Months of secret planning. Months where everyone else got invited. Months where I, the co-owner of the house, the person whose bed they were sleeping in, was deliberately left in the dark. Before I could speak, an older woman shuffled up to me. I recognized her, barely. Dad's Aunt Edith. She squinted, then broke into a smile. "Is this James's girl? My goodness, I hardly recognized you. Last time I saw you, you were in high school." I managed a polite nod. "Hi, Aunt Edith. It's been a long time," she beamed. "Your brother's been such a wonderful host, gave us the grand tour, showed us all the improvements you made since your father passed. He said you're rarely home because of work." Ah, so that's the narrative. I'm just the ghost upstairs who doesn't really count. I started weaving through the crowd, trying to keep my composure as the hits kept coming. Cousin Ryan told me he booked his flight 6 months ago. Uncle Paul thanked me for letting them use my space. Aunt Carol mentioned how she'd been sleeping in my bedroom for the past 3 nights. My bedroom. That was the final straw. I turned, walked calmly up the stairs to my apartment, and found the door unlocked. Inside, a disaster. There were air mattresses all over my office, suitcases stacked in corners. My bed was unmade, covered in unfamiliar sheets. My framed research certificates had been taken down, replaced with kids' drawings. My stuff had been moved. My space, my sanctuary, it had been completely overrun. I just stood there, trying to breathe. Downstairs, the party kept going. Laughter, clinking glasses, a celebration I hadn't even known was happening in my own home. My phone buzzed. A text from Madison, my best friend. "How was the flight? Did you make it home okay?" I stared at it, almost laughing. She had no idea what was happening. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Kevin appeared in the doorway, looking sheepish. "Hey," he said, like this was normal. "Can we talk?" We sat in my bedroom, my now not-so-private bedroom. Kevin looked like he was trying to act casual, but I could tell he was nervous. "Look, Rachel," he began, running a hand through his hair. "I can explain." "I'd love to hear it," I said, arms crossed. He let out a breath. "So, this reunion's been in the works for a while. Mom, Stephanie, and I started talking about it months ago, and then Aunt Patricia got involved, and it just kind of snowballed. You planned a massive family reunion in our house and didn't tell me." "Well," he said, shrugging like it was no big deal, "you were going to be in Chicago anyway, and we figured the timing worked." "For who?" I asked. "For the people using my bed? Or the ones moving my things? Or the guests who don't even know me?" "They're not strangers," he said defensively. "They're family. And it's not just your house, Rachel. I co-own this place too." "Yes," I said firmly. "And we agreed that my apartment was my private space." That's when Mom walked in, without knocking, of course, and Stephanie trailed behind her like a loyal sidekick. "What's going on up here?" Mom asked, arms folded. "We have guests downstairs wondering where their hosts disappeared to." "I was just explaining things," Kevin said. I turned to my mother. "Why wasn't I told about this? No email, no text, nothing." Mom waved her hand like it was all some silly misunderstanding. "It was a last-minute thing." "Last minute?" "Ryan booked his flight at Christmas." She hesitated, then said, "We didn't want to stress you out. You're always so wrapped up in your work." Stephanie chimed in, "We honestly didn't think you'd want to come. You never really show up to these things anyway. You're always working." "Right," I said. "So instead of inviting me and letting me make that decision, you planned it behind my back, lied about the dates, and used my space." Kevin shifted awkwardly. "We were going to clean everything up before you got back." "Including the people sleeping in my bed?" "They're elderly," Mom said. "We needed to put them somewhere comfortable." I stood up. "You invaded my space, rearranged my things, went through my drawers." "No one went through anything," Mom insisted. Just then, a crash came from the bathroom. I rushed in, and there was a young boy I'd never seen before, standing amidst shattered glass. "My perfume bottles," I whispered. "I was just looking," he said, wide-eyed. I turned back to them. "This is unacceptable." Mom rolled her eyes. "It's just stuff, Rachel. Family is what matters." I laughed, but there was no joy in it. "Is that what this is?" Then Kevin cleared his throat. "While we're talking, Stephanie and I were thinking, since you're hardly ever here, maybe you'd consider selling your half of the house to us?" There it was. The real reason behind this whole circus. Before I could respond, Stephanie's mom popped her head in. "Diana, we need you for the family tree debate." Mom turned to me with a warning look. "Let's not make a scene. We'll talk later." As they filed out, something caught my eye in the closet, a folder poking out from under a guest's luggage. I pulled it free. Inside, financial documents from Kevin's desk, loan denials, credit card statements, multiple mortgage refinancing attempts. It all clicked. The reunion, the timing, the sudden interest in my half of the house. This wasn't about family. This was about money. As soon as they were gone, I started packing. I grabbed my weekend bag, methodically stuffing in clothes, my laptop, toiletries. I took photos of everything, my rumpled bed, the kids' artwork over my diplomas, the air mattresses in my office, the broken perfume bottles. I time-stamped every image. Then came a knock. Aunt Grace stood in the doorway. "I thought I'd find you up here," she said quietly. "May I come in?" She sat on the edge of the bed and shook her head. "I had no idea you weren't told about this. When I asked Diana if you were involved, she told me you were busy but had given your blessing." I kept packing. "I just found out. Today." She let out a heavy sigh. "Your father would be furious if he saw this." I blinked back tears. "They've been sleeping in my bed, Grace." Kevin just asked me to sell him my half of the house. Her eyebrows shot up. Did he now? She lowered her voice. I overheard them last night talking to a financial advisor. Kevin and Stephanie are in over their heads. Something about investment properties going bad, a lot of debt. That matched the folder I found. I zipped my bag shut, a plan forming in my mind. I'm going to step away for a bit. Can you please not tell anyone I've packed? She nodded. Of course. Then she reached into her coat pocket and handed me a small velvet pouch. I was going to give this to you during the gift exchange tomorrow, but I think you need it now. Inside was a gold locket. I opened it and found a photo, me and my dad at my medical school graduation. His face glowed with pride. He mailed me a copy, Aunt Grace said, and told me that day was the proudest of his life. I held the locket to my chest. Whatever you decide, she said, remember your father saw your worth, even when others didn't. After Aunt Grace left, I took one last look around the space that no longer felt like mine. The perfume-sweet air from the broken bottles still hung in the room, cloying and intrusive. I slipped the locket around my neck, grabbed my packed bag, and with quiet, careful steps, made my way downstairs. The party was still going strong, karaoke in full swing, people laughing, sharing old stories. No one noticed me. Or maybe they did, and just didn't care. In the kitchen, Stephanie was barking orders over casserole trays, pointing at my specialty cookware like she was the head chef on a cooking show. She saw me and brightened. There you are. Can you grab more folding chairs from the basement? I forced a polite smile. Actually, I've got some urgent emails for work. I'll be stepping out for a while. She nodded quickly, relieved. Oh, sure, no problem. We've got it under control. As I walked toward the door, I overheard my cousin Thomas chatting with Kevin in the corner. So, Kev, what's the plan? You buying out Rachel's half? Kevin responded in that smooth salesman tone he always used when closing a deal. Yeah, we're just ironing out the details. Once the paperwork's done, we'll finally have full ownership and can redo the second floor like we've always wanted. The confidence in his voice made me pause. They really thought I'd just roll over. I stepped outside, the cold evening air hitting my face like a slap. I didn't look back. Once I got in the car, I called Madison. She answered on the first ring. Rachel, what's going on? Everything, I said. I'll explain, but I just need a place to breathe. You're staying with us. Daniel's making lasagna, guest room's all yours. But I already had a hotel booked. I needed quiet, space, control. The hotel lobby was blissfully still, soft lighting, no one yelling about folding chairs or asking whose casserole didn't have nuts. As I checked in, the receptionist smiled. Business or pleasure? Neither, I replied, just creating some distance. In my room, I laid everything out. Photos of the mess, scans of the financial documents, notes I scribbled in my planner. I was exhausted, but adrenaline kept me sharp. I made lists, Googled legal options, drafted emails. By midnight, the pain had transformed into purpose. My phone buzzed nonstop, texts from Kevin, from Mom, a few random cousins. Madison sent a "You okay?" message. I replied only to her. Safe, thank you. Talk tomorrow. I turned off my phone, crawled into bed, and let sleep pull me under like a deep tide. I woke the next morning to sunlight streaming through the curtains and 27 missed calls. Kevin, Mom, Stephanie, a few relatives I hadn't spoken to since the 2000s. Their messages went from casual to frantic. From Kevin, where did you go? Mom's worried. From Mom, this is childish behavior, Rachel. Call me immediately. From Kevin again, you're embarrassing the family. Seriously, at least let us know you're okay. Stephanie, you're making Kevin look bad. Please don't ruin this for everyone. I ignored all of them. Instead, I ordered room service, hot coffee, fresh fruit, scrambled eggs that didn't come with a side of guilt. Then I picked up the phone and called Barbara, my attorney. Rachel, she answered warmly. Wasn't expecting to hear from you today. Something happened, I said, and I need your help. At 11 sharp, I arrived at her office downtown, laptop and paperwork in hand. Barbara greeted me in the conference room, along with a property law specialist she'd invited. Over the next 2 hours, I explained everything, the party, the invasion, the damage, and the convenient timing of Kevin's offer. She listened carefully, asking all the right questions. So let me summarize, she said finally. Your co-owner and family members hosted a large-scale event at your shared property without your consent, used your private living quarters, allowed guests to damage your belongings, and then requested that you sell your half, coincidentally, right when their finances are struggling? Exactly. Barbara sat back. You have options. The agreement you and Kevin signed clearly protects your private space. We can file for a partition by sale, forcing the house to be sold and profits split, or we demand a buyout, full market value plus damages. I hesitated. What about my mom? She's in the in-law apartment. She can stay, if both owners consent. If you sell, that arrangement would need to be restructured. By early afternoon, we had a plan. Methodical, professional, airtight. I'd wait for the reunion to end, assess the damage with a contractor, and present Kevin with two choices: buy me out properly or accept a formal rental management of my share. And everything, every message, every agreement would now be in writing. I didn't go back to the house until Sunday night. By then, it was quiet. No more karaoke, no more casserole dishes, just eerie silence and a faint smell of party leftovers. The lock had sticky tape residue. Someone had taped it open for guest access. Strike one. Inside, it was worse than I expected. Furniture shifted. Carpets stained. Empty bottles everywhere. Upstairs, the damage made my stomach turn. My bedroom had clearly hosted multiple guests. The sheets had been replaced again. My office still had crayon marks on the desk. Fingerprints on everything. My broken perfume bottles had been swept up, but glass still sparkled between floor tiles. Then my phone buzzed. An email from Dr. Winters. He wanted to refer me for a prestigious 3-year research fellowship in Switzerland. Based on your Chicago presentation, he wrote, you're our top candidate. The team is eager to speak with you this week. I read it 3 times. Then I smiled. Kevin got home not long after. Rachel? He called from downstairs. Your car's here. Where have you been? I didn't answer. Instead, I sent him a text. I'm documenting the damage to my space. I'll be communicating in writing only. He stomped up the stairs and knocked. This is ridiculous, he said through the door. You can't just disappear and then lock yourself away. People were worried. I didn't answer. I was busy cataloging damages. A few minutes later, from Mom, you're breaking my heart, Rachel. From Kevin, are you trying to make Stephanie cry? Because it's working. From Stephanie, how could you do this to Kevin after all he's done for you? I sent it all to Barbara. Then I called a locksmith. By that night, I had a new deadbolt on my door, a basic home security system installed, and a quiet calm settling over my space for the first time in days. I scheduled the video interview with the Swiss research team for later that week. I reached out to cleaning companies for quotes. I wrote Kevin a long, factual, professional email. Here are the documented violations of our agreement. Here are the repair costs. Here are your options. Then I emailed each family member who had attended the reunion. Polite, firm, clear? While I wasn't informed or included in the event planning, I hope you enjoyed your visit. Going forward, all future stays will require advance approval. On a personal note, I've been offered an opportunity to continue my research abroad, and I'm considering relocating. The responses started trickling in almost immediately. Apologies, regrets. Some claimed they'd had no idea I hadn't been involved. Aunt Patricia even called me. Rachel, I'm horrified, she said. They told us you had agreed to everything. I can't believe I slept in your bed without your permission. I'm so sorry. That wasn't just validation, it was evidence. I added her statement to my file. When I finally emerged the next morning, Kevin was waiting in the kitchen. We need to talk about this email, he said, waving his phone. Legal action? Seriously? This is family, Rachel, not a courtroom. I stayed calm. I'm communicating in writing only. He rolled his eyes. This is about the house, isn't it? If you needed money, you could have just said so. I tilted my head. You mean like how you went through 4 refinance attempts and maxed out 2 credit cards? His face paled. This is about respect, Kevin, I said, and I'm done begging for it. After that final confrontation in the kitchen, I left for my meeting with the Swiss research team. It went better than I could have hoped. Dr. Miller, the program director, welcomed me with open arms. Your work on targeted therapies, he said, could accelerate our international trials. We'd love to have you on board. The role came with a generous stipend, full relocation support, and the chance to lead a research unit in Geneva. At the end of the call, he said, we'll need your decision in 2 weeks. Our new cycle starts soon. I told him I'd give an answer within the week, because in truth, I already knew what I was going to say. That same day, I visited a property management firm, one that specializes in high-end co-owned rentals. I met with Miss Collins, their director, and explained the situation. Co-ownership, upcoming relocation, and a co-owner who was likely to be difficult. She didn't flinch. "We've handled worse," she said with a reassuring smile. "We'll inspect the space, document everything, and manage your portion of the house. You won't have to speak to your brother again." Perfect. While we scheduled the inspection for the next day, when Kevin would be at work, I also met with Barbara to finalize the legal framework. She'd already drafted a formal amendment to our co-ownership agreement. I wouldn't sell. I'd exercise my right to rent my share through a management company. "You'll retain your ownership, get income from tenants, and remove yourself from daily involvement," she said. Clean, legal, boundaries restored. She also drafted a formal letter stating the damages I'd documented, including estimates from the cleaning company. Those costs would be deducted from our shared maintenance fund. And just to cover all bases, we created a separate agreement protecting Mom's in-law apartment for the remainder of her life, with boundaries clearly spelled out. The next morning, Miss Collins arrived with a clipboard and camera. She took inventory of every room, noting all remaining damage. Midway through the tour, the front door slammed open. "Kevin." He took one look at her camera and narrowed his eyes. "Who's this?" "I'm Jennifer Collins from Elite Property Management," she said coolly. "Dr. Carter has engaged us to manage her property while she relocates." "Relocates?" His head whipped toward me. "You're really doing this?" "She's exercising her legal rights," Miss Collins answered before I could say a word. "Per your co-ownership agreement, she has every right to rent her private residence." Kevin's face flushed as he followed us around, tossing out protests, trying to argue about tenants, safety, logistics. I remained calm, answering only when necessary, directing most questions back to Miss Collins. After 20 minutes of being stonewalled by professionals, he gave up and stormed off, calling Mom the second we walked out. As expected, she showed up within the hour. She barged into my apartment, despite the new lock, and said, "This has gone far enough. You're tearing this family apart." I didn't even flinch. "I'm protecting my property and enforcing agreements that you all chose to ignore." "But we're family," she said. "We don't need contracts and legal papers." "That's exactly why we do," I said. The reunion proved that. I turned to finish packing. She hovered. "Switzerland? Seriously? Just like that?" "Not just like that," I said. "It's a research opportunity I've worked my whole career for, and I'm taking it." That evening, I sent the certified letters, official notice of the management arrangement, damage invoices, and a copy of the updated agreement. 2 days later, Barbara received an email from Kevin's newly hired attorney requesting a meeting to discuss alternative solutions. Translation: they were panicking. We scheduled the meeting for later that week in Barbara's office, neutral ground. Kevin came in with his lawyer and offered to buy my share of the house for 15% less than market value. Barbara smiled politely and countered, "Full value plus damages, or accept the management arrangement as is." After 2 hours of back and forth, it became clear Kevin didn't have the funds. His only option was to agree to the rental arrangement, like it or not. "You're really doing this," he said as we wrapped up. "This isn't about proving a point," I replied. "It's about protecting myself and moving forward." That night, I officially accepted the Geneva offer. I started visa paperwork, arranged for shipping, transferred key accounts, cleaned out my office. I packed my apartment into labeled boxes. Things to store, things to ship, things to leave behind. The texts didn't stop. Kevin's ranged from guilt to anger. Mom's were classic emotional manipulation. "You're ruining our family. You've made me sick with stress. You'll regret this when you're alone in a foreign country." I responded to none of them, only to Barbara, only to Miss Collins, only to the life I was now building. The property inspection went smoothly. The new tenant, a visiting professor from UCLA, signed a 1-year lease. Management took over. Kevin tried to block them. He failed. I moved into my new apartment in Geneva 2 weeks later. And let me tell you, starting over in Switzerland was like breathing for the first time after years of holding your breath. The lab was state-of-the-art. My colleagues were brilliant. Dr. Amani from Kenya, Doctor from South Korea, Lucia, a neurologist from Brazil, Mark, a soft-spoken immunologist from Switzerland. They saw me, Not as someone's little sister. Not as the awkward one who didn't fit in, as a peer, a researcher, a scientist whose work mattered. Lucia said one day over coffee, "Your receptor modification paper changed how I think about T-cell response. I've read it 3 times." And I just sat there, blinking, because that had never happened at home. Back in Boston, the drama continued. Barbara sent weekly updates. Week 1, tenant moved in. Kevin protested. Management stood firm. Week 2, first rent deposit received. Mom submitted a complaint about the stranger using the laundry room. Week 3, Kevin hired a new attorney, attempting to nullify the management contract. No legal standing. Their texts continued too. The tenant is weird. Mom's uncomfortable. I don't understand why you're doing this to us. Kevin again, at least tell me how long this punishment is going to last. For weeks I said nothing. Then one day I received a message from Mom that was different. "Maybe we should have told you about the reunion. We didn't think you'd care." I replied simply, "You should have." She didn't respond immediately. But the next day, "You always seemed separate from the family. You never wanted to be part of it." I was never invited, I wrote. I was always treated like the extra, like I didn't belong. Silence again. Then I'm trying to understand. Not an apology, but a beginning. As my life in Switzerland settled into rhythm, I found something I hadn't had in years: clarity. Madison came to visit that fall. As we walked along Lake Geneva, she said, "You seem lighter, like you finally stopped carrying everyone else's expectations." I nodded. I think I did. 6 months into the move, Barbara emailed me again. Kevin had secured financing through Stephanie's parents. He was offering to buy my share of the house at full market value. Clean break. Final chapter. That night, over fondue and wine, I told my new friends. "I don't know," I said. Selling feels final, like erasing myself from that story. Lucia raised her glass. Maybe it's not erasure. Maybe it's closure. So I said yes, but with 2 conditions. A portion of the sale would fund a medical research scholarship in my dad's name. My mother's living space would be protected in a legal agreement for the rest of her life. Barbara handled the rest. The sale went through, and for the first time since Dad passed, I was free. A year and a half later, I returned to Boston for a medical conference. I agreed to meet Kevin and Stephanie for dinner with their new baby, Emily. Mom came too. It was awkward, tentative, careful. But when Kevin placed Emily in my arms and I saw her eyes, Dad's eyes, I felt something unspoken pass between us. Mom blinked back tears. "James would have loved her," Kevin added, "and he would have been proud of your research." Mom clipped the article from that oncology journal. I looked at her. She looked away, but she didn't deny it. As we said goodbye, Mom asked softly, "Breakfast before your flight?" I nodded. "Yeah, I'd like that." We didn't hug. Not yet, but we made eye contact, and it felt real. Back in my hotel room that night, I looked out over the Boston skyline and thought about that banner. Family means forever. And maybe that's true. But forever doesn't mean unconditional access. Forever doesn't mean enabling disrespect. Forever doesn't mean staying where you're not seen or valued. Sometimes forever means redefining who your family is. Choosing people who love you for who you are, not who they need you to be. If you've made it this far, thank you. If this story hit home, drop a comment below. Tell me, have you ever had to redefine family? Have you ever had to set boundaries with people you love? Have you ever had to walk away not out of spite, but out of self-respect? Because sometimes the bravest thing we can do is choose ourselves, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. So hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories like this. And remember, you deserve to be seen, you deserve to be respected, and you absolutely deserve a place that feels like home. See you in the next video.